Hi everyone, it's Stephanie here, and today I have a video to share a card I've created with the September Simon Says Stamp Card Kit. This kit is very birthday and celebration themed. It has a really great stamp set with some birthday sentiments as well as some balloon images and confetti that match really well with the pattern papers that come inside the kit. And it also comes with this white gesso and a palette knife, which is so fun. I love that every month these card kits have something completely unexpected in them and really push you to stretch your creativity. So I just love that about these kits. So I'm going to go ahead and start my card panel here. This is going to be adhered onto the card base when I'm finished. And I really wanted to use the gesso in my card design. So I'm going to first stamp my sentiment just so that I know I have it exactly where I want it. So I'm inking it up here with VersaFine Black Onyx ink, and I'm using this ink because I want to emboss it with clear embossing powder. And since this is a pigment ink and tends to stay wet a little bit longer, you can go ahead and stamp with it and then add your clear embossing powder on top and then heat emboss it. And what's great about that is it looks like you've actually embossed with black embossing powder, but you don't end up with all the mess that you normally do with that color of embossing powder. So I did my sentiment, and now I'm taking the smallest balloon. There is another larger balloon, but I decided to stay consistent on this card design and just use the smallest balloon. And I'm going ahead and stamping this kind of in a random pattern on the cardstock panel here. I'm just kind of picking out empty areas that I think it would look good to have the balloon and trying to fill up the card front as much as possible without making it look too cluttered. And then I'm going to take my clear embossing powder and completely cover all of these stamped balloons, and I'm going to heat set that so that all of the balloons are completely heat embossed. And I don't have to worry about any of the ink smudging because what I'm going to be doing is painting inside of these balloons with the gesso. So what I decided to do is take some of the Simon Says Stamp ink colors. I used 3 different colors, and I'm going to go ahead and mix them with the gesso, and I'm going to paint in these balloons. So that's why this heat embossing really helps, because it kind of gives you a barrier around the balloon edge to kind of hold in the gesso, and it just really makes the balloon outlines pop out of the image because the gesso is kind of like a paint when you mix it up. So I really wanted the black outlines to really stand out once I had the gesso colors on there. And I'm not going for any perfect coloring or anything. I'm just kind of painting on it, and I'm kind of going for an artsy look where it's kind of messy and I don't really have the full balloon completely colored in. I'm just kind of adding the gesso paint mix that I'm making here to the balloons, but I'm not worrying about going right to the edges and making them look fully colored. So I decided to add a little bit of water to my little mix here just because I wanted it a little bit less thick than the gesso when it comes out of the tube. So I just went ahead and dipped my paintbrush into the water and then picked up some of the gesso and then kind of put it into the area where the ink is. So this ink here is the Coral Reef, and you can see here that the gesso, because it's a solid white color, it really tones down the color of the ink. This ink is normally a pretty bright, darker coral color, and on the card, when you can see here when I'm painting it, it takes on like a very light pinkish coral color, and I just love that it really mutes it down and gives it a really soft color. So now this one here, this is Scuba ink, which is another very vibrant, like green teal ink color, and when you add the gesso into that, it really tones it down and makes it almost look like a mint color. So like I said, I really love the really soft muted colors, and I don't tend to use a lot of pastels in my card designs, but I loved how these turned out, and I really enjoyed the final design with the soft pinks and the soft mints and then the soft aqua color. So I just followed the same step. I added some water to my paintbrush. I picked up some of that gesso and mixed it into the scuba color there, and I'm just picking random balloons to kind of color in. And as you can see, like I explained, I decided not to fully paint them so that they look like they were perfectly filled in. I wanted it to look a little bit more freehand and a little bit more kind of relaxed. So I just kind of added the color into the center area of the balloon and then just kind of pulled it out towards the edges, making sure I didn't go over the actual outline of the balloon. And then once I kind of put it on the balloon, I'd move on to another. And if I found that once it sat for a minute on the balloon, it looked a little bit too thin and I could still see a lot of the white, I would just go over that same balloon area and add some more of that gesso on top. And I wasn't going for a smooth finished look. I kind of wanted the gesso to kind of be a little bit bumpy and textured, just to add a little bit to the design and kind of make that gesso really stand out and look kind of textured and dimensional. So you can see there it's all on there, and I just went ahead and let that dry. And now I'm going to add some balloon strings to all of my balloons. So I didn't want to overpower the card design with the balloon strings, so I didn't want to use a black. So I decided just to take a gray Copic marker, and I'm just kind of lightly adding little balloon strings. I'm just kind of giving them a little bit of a curve as I go down. I'm not writing over top of the sentiment. I'm kind of just lifting the marker when I get to those areas so that I don't have anything overlapping. And then I'm also going to take the little bow that's in the stamp set. It's like a little tied bow, and I'm just adding that to all of the balloon bottoms with Simon Says Stamp Fog ink. And the gray Copic marker that I used for the strings was a warm gray, which matches the fog ink really well. So I liked how those kind of went together. So you can barely see them in the camera, but in the actual card you can definitely see them, but they don't overpower the fun colors of the gesso balloons. And then to finish it off, I added some little stamping with the little heart and the star that come in the stamp set. And then because lately I cannot do a card without sequins, I decided that I needed to add a couple of clear sequins. So I kind of scattered them randomly around the card design, just to give a little bit more dimension and texture and a little bit more shine to this fun birthday card. And then, as always, I filled the center with silver stickles, and then that's going to complete the card today. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this card, and I will see you next time in my next video.